Today's episode is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.anxietydiariespodcast.com/audible. Hello and welcome to Anxiety Diaries, a weekly podcast about mental health, incredible people, and so much more. I'm your host, Scott Newmeyer. If you like what you hear, please subscribe. And if you get a chance, please head over to Apple Podcasts to rate and review the show. It really does help, and we really do appreciate it. Today on the podcast, we have Dr. Jen Esquer. You may know her as @DocJenFit on Instagram. She's a doctor of physical therapy and a movement enthusiast who treats patients privately in Los Angeles. She also has online programs called the Mobility Method and the Optimal Body that reach people globally. She uses her social platforms to push educational videos on how to maintain mobility, increase strength, and prevent pain throughout the body. As a former gymnast of 9 years and a Pilates instructor for 6 years, Jen is an avid mover who dabbles in AcroYoga, calisthenics, weight training, Pilates, and yoga. Her vision is to empower others to continue to move and live a pain-free, active lifestyle. On the podcast, we're going to talk about her huge social media following and how that helps her get her message across to people. And we're also going to talk about the connection between physical health and mental health. And she's even going to give you a few tips on how to start exercising and moving your body when you're also an anxious person. It really is a great episode, it's a great conversation, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, here's Jen. Welcome to the podcast, Jen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on, really.
I'm very excited to have you on. You have an enormous group of people following you on Instagram. But for those who may not know you and your work, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a doctor of physical therapy, and I have kind of stepped outside of the norm. And now I'm treating clients privately, just out of a gym, actually, in Los Angeles. And I've created programs so I can reach people worldwide. So it's absolutely amazing. I'm super grateful for the ability to be able to reach people from everywhere and get them tapped into their own bodies so that they don't need someone like me. So it's been an interesting journey, and I'm just so grateful.
You do have this huge social media following, especially on Instagram. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in social media and when you first started to see this big growth happening on the page?
When I was in grad school, I was just posting my workouts outside, and I would tag some of the calisthenic pages that at the time were big. This was like 4 years ago. And one of them reached out to me, and he was like, "Hey, we all get together in Venice Beach. Why don't you come down and train with us?" And so I went down. The guys were absolutely amazing, so warm, so welcoming. And I started to work out with them almost every week. And he would share anyone that was in the calisthenic community. And so because I was coming down pretty regularly, he started posting me. And 4 years ago, he had like 300,000 followers, which was huge back then. And so I naturally just started getting people coming to my page. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll start to share more handstands and my fitness journey. And so I kind of started transitioning from less personal photos like family and friends and just started sharing kind of my calisthenic journey, what I was learning. And it just started to grow. And then I started to meet other movers in different fields and be invited to events where I was meeting different people, doing challenges on Instagram with yogis. And it just started to grow very naturally, very organically. And it was a fun hobby to have in grad school.
There are a few things that I think set your Instagram apart from a lot of other people in the fitness health space on social media. One, that you take a very clinical approach to instruction. I mean, really showing people the most important and safe way to do these exercises. Each video thumbnail includes like a technical muscular diagram side by side with you. Mm-hmm. How important was it for you to establish this channel as a learning space for people rather than what you might see in the fitness space elsewhere on social media?
Once I graduated from physical physical therapy, I kind of pushed Instagram off to the side and I decided this was fun, but this was just a hobby. It's not my focus. It's not where I want to put my energy into, until I met up with my friend Vinny, and he kind of convinced me to start educating online. He was already kind of doing this where he would put the anatomy photo next to the video, and he was kind of leading the space in the rehab industry. And so I listened to him and I said, okay, I do want people to know that if I'm going to be posting, I have more knowledge than just what I can do with my body or what workouts I do or what other people can do for their body. So I wanted people to know that I had this degree. So at the time, my name was also Jen_ES_care, because that's how you say my last name. So I changed it over to DocJenFit and I started posting educational content. And people actually gravitated toward that rather than my fitness things way more. So it only motivated me to continue posting and continue sharing what I know about the body and how I know that if people start doing some of these exercises, it can open some things up, or it can relieve some pain, or it can get you back into neuromuscularly how your body is working together as one. So it started to open up a lot of different things. And I just started seeing people gravitating toward, what I was posting so much more rather than the fitness things. So it was really beneficial to me.
I think that it fits perfectly as well with the second thing that I think sets your page apart is this super tight focus on mobility. A lot of fitness accounts are all about working out, weights, CrossFit, which is fine. But you are very specific about mobility. Is that simply a result of your expertise in the area? And also, do you think that having a very specific niche has helped your page grow?
Every time I would post like a week of sharing, this time I want to share about plantar fasciitis, or this week I want to share about the shoulder pain. Every time I lead into a week, I always start with the foundational layer, which is the mobility aspect. Like, are you missing mobility? Let's do a video on that. Those videos seem to always do so much better than my strength or my corrective exercises videos. And so naturally, I just knew that that's where people liked to see a lot of my content was more mobility based. And it was easy for me to be able to say, this is where I'm going to focus in on, because it is the foundational layer that if people started to understand what's restricted, they can move into that on their own. They don't need me to tell them. They just need to feel it in their own body. So it was really easy for me to say, I'm so glad that people are gravitating toward this more. And also, I know that I can take that and create programs where people can actually start to tap into it in a way bigger way.
It really seems like you've kind of filled a gap in Instagram as well, that there really isn't anybody else that was focusing specifically on mobility. And I think maybe that's why people gravitated toward it so much as well. They found what they were finally looking for.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about mental health as well as physical health, since this is a mental health podcast. How do you find physical health and mental health intertwine? What is the big connection there for you?
Everything. Being a physical therapist, it's not my expertise. And I just say that I am opening the space. I lead every consultation with compassion and a space for people to feel like they can tell me anything. They can release anything that they need to. I'm not giving advice. I'm not talking them through. I'm not probing questions to try to get deeper. I'm just opening a safe space. And oftentimes when I do that and I allow them to tap back into their breathing, because breathing can be so effective in getting people back into their parasympathetic and really getting things to relax and release, they usually start crying. And that's where the connection comes into the brain and stress. And what are you holding on to? And what are some things in your life that could be causing this pain, this reaction, this chronic symptom that you continue to feel all the time? And a lot of people that I work with nowadays, it is a lot of chronic pain patients. And so they're so locked up in their bodies. I mean, when we're feeling pain for more than 6 months, it's easy to get into this pattern of beating yourself up. Why do I still have pain? Why is this happening? And this shouldn't be happening. And you just start beating yourself up more and more and more. And that's only going to make you hold on to the pain even more. It's not going to help to release it. So when I'm able to lead in with a client first on compassion and saying it is okay, pain is not bad. Pain is our body's way of just talking to us and giving us awareness. So we get to acknowledge it first and say it is okay, and allowing people to say it is okay for themselves and create that space for themselves, and then tap back into that parasympathetic system so they can actually feel that true release of relaxation, because a lot of times people are so tight and locked up and just holding on to so much. And so when we're able to create that space and tap into that system, so much opens up. And I've had people who are like, oh my gosh, I've never felt this way. I've never had a release of pain. I never knew that that could happen.
It's a real breakthrough for people.
Oh my gosh, so much.
That must be rewarding for you.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I left the clinic, because you don't have the time to really dive in with people one-on-one that much. A lot of times it's quick, it's turnover. There's so many other people around you. It's distracting. So it's hard to get down to that level with a client and create that open space where they feel like they can actually release, or they can cry, or they can talk to you. Because what you're taught in PT school a lot too is they're going to want to go into their story, just rush them along the way and get them to the point.
Right. The more patience, the more money.
Mm-hmm.
Were you anxious about leaving the clinic and going out on your own?
Yes. But I also came to a point where it was almost like a sudden click of like, what am I still doing here? I have so many people reaching out to want to work with me personally. I'm already building my own thing on the side, and I'm having all these other opportunities where I have the opportunity to talk to someone like you, or go off and do an interview somewhere else, or go do a magazine shoot. So all these other things were coming at me that I wouldn't have time if I was in a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have the opportunity to, touch more lives and help more people. So it was literally a sudden click of like, oh my gosh, I can't be here anymore.
Yeah, this is what you have to do.
Yeah. And I text my bosses and I was like, we need to talk on Monday. And it's funny because my boyfriend would be like, oh, I knew that's what you were going to do. I don't know why you stayed so long, but you got to follow your own path and do things on your own time. Don't let anyone rush you, especially if you're not ready.
Well, I can't imagine having a more motivational person next to you telling you that. So
yeah.
One of the things that I've struggled with as an anxious person is starting to exercise or to get back into exercising. Many of the same sensations you experience with exercise, sweating, pounding heart, increased heart rate, they're all the same symptoms of panic attacks. Do you have any advice for people suffering from anxiety or mental health issues on how to get started getting their body moving without feeling that anxiety and fear?
Honestly, mobility is a great way to get started into that. I talk about this conversation that we have to have with our body. With a conversation with a person or with yourself, there's two parts to it. There's what you're saying to yourself, and there's a listening aspect. What is your body telling you? So if you're saying to yourself, I have to work out because this person's telling me, or I have to feel like this, or I hate my body, it's fat, or any of these negative things, that's probably going to help create that anxiety. It's going to lead you to a path of unhappy. And when you start to feel those symptoms when you're working out, it's not going to feel good. So I always start with, what is the conversation that you're leading in with your brain? Are you telling yourself that you get to work out, or you get to move because it feels good afterwards, or you have this amazing body that is able to do it? So start talking to yourself in a more positive way before you even start to move, even if it's just a walk is where I would go to. So say, I'm going to go for a walk because my body's able. I'm going to go move a little bit, or I'm going to go try this workout because I can, and because it's going to feel amazing. So start with that positive conversation within your mind first, and then start listening. And it's okay to feel whatever you're going to feel. So if your body starts feeling like, oh my God, my heart rate is going up, remember to breathe, and that this is only supportive. So, oh, my heart rate's going up because my bloodstream is going through, and it's actually helping my heart to pump through more blood through my body. And as it does that, it increases the oxygen, and I'm able to exercise my heart, which is actually a really good thing. So if we start to look at these things that are happening within the body and tuning in and listening and coming at it from a more like, oh no, this is actually a good thing. Oh no, this is actually supporting me. And it's also okay to say, this is scaring me in this moment, and I'm going to take a step back. So if you're in a workout class, go to the back, step out for a moment, take a breather. No one is judging you. The hardest critic we have is ourselves.
So it's like a combination of this positive attitude, kind of changing your perception, and also having a very clinical look at it. Like, this is just my heart rate raising because of this bodily function.
Which is a great thing, and it's a positive thing. And I would also suggest moving slowly. Never just jump into something because you're like, okay, I have to work out. They told me that I have to move and it's going to make me feel better. So I'm going to go to this workout and it's going to be super hard. That'll be so overwhelming.
And then you'll quit, right? right?
Yeah, most likely.
That's the whole New Year's resolution thing that happens to so many people, right?
Exactly.
So you feel kind of like mobility training is like the gateway drug to getting into more intense cardio, weight training, things like that down the line?
Yes, because it's only going to support you. Once you do start lifting, once you do start cardio or anything else, you're going to have this body that isn't going to be in so much pain afterwards and is probably going to help prevent injury. Because that's the other number one thing that causes people to stop when they start automatically just going into heavy workouts is that they get injured. Because if you haven't been doing anything and you're sitting in chairs and you're not moving your body or getting it into those end ranges of motion, and then you go try to squat, it's most likely going to cause pain and it could even cause injury.
Now, this question comes from my sister, who is a runner. She runs all the time. But how about mobility for people like me and her who work at a desk all day and don't often get to stand and move as much as we might like? What's a good way for us to practice mobility in those cases?
I like to spread mobility out throughout the day. I am such a busy person and it's hard to say, okay, I'm going to do an hour of mobility every day. Like for me, that's just not reality. And for most people, that is not reality, especially when you're working a long job and you have to sit there and be in a chair all day long. So instead, I say, what are the little tools that you can start to bring into the office every day on a daily basis? And what are some things like one mobility exercise you can start with before you get out of bed? A few that you do when you're at work. So every time you get out of your chair, you're going to open up your chest. You're going to open up your hip flexor. Every time that you're going to go to print something out or make a copy, you're going to do a squat and you're going to hold that, or you're going to do a forward fold if you're in like a tight dress and you can't squat. You're going to do something that takes your body into these ranges of motion that you haven't been going into. And if you start doing that every hour, even once every 2 hours, something that's getting you up and moving a little bit more is going to be the key to getting into this mobility. And it's more about the consistency of how you're moving into your body every day rather than the time spent.
So just keep doing it. All these small things kind of add up is what you're saying.
Yes. Over time, consistency is the number one thing. Consistency for everything across the board. Consistency in what you're telling yourself. Consistency in how you're showing up for people. Consistency in your business if you want it to grow. Everything takes consistency. And it's the small little steps that really build up over time. And especially when you're sitting in a desk from 8 to 5, movement and getting out of those positions is the best thing that you can do for your body. So how often are you standing up throughout the day? How often are you moving? How often are you getting out? It's not about holding a perfect posture throughout the day because I don't believe in that. I don't preach that. I think that's almost creating more tension through your body if you're like having to chin back, shoulders down and like force this position all throughout the day.
Yeah.
But it's just if you're going to be forward, how much time are you spending actually going backward and getting out of it? So it's allowing your body to kind of feel in this balance. Everything in life, we're always wanting to create the balance, right? So if we're creating a better balance within your body, you're just going to feel better throughout the day.
It makes me wonder how you feel about standing desks, this whole standing desk movement.
I feel like it's helping because it's getting us at least moving from up to down because you're not going to be standing all day long either. I don't think that one position is the answer. It's about the movement between it. So if you can go from sit to stand throughout the day, that's great. And most of those desks, they go from high to low.
Right. They go up and down.
Yeah. I think most effectively would be a desk that not only goes from high to low, but all the way down to the ground too. My vision, my dream would be to have a cushion or a back support that you're sitting all the way down on the ground and you can get up all the way up.
I mean, everything goes through these phases, right? You remember a couple of years ago, people were sitting on exercise balls at their desks, and now it's the standing thing.
Yeah.
With this huge social media following, your mobility challenges are an enormous hit every time you do one on Instagram. Do you feel like the good of social media outweighs the negative, or do you think a lot of what we see on social media is bad for mental health, physical health, things like that?
I think it depends on who you're following. So if you're scrolling through your Instagram and you're feeling bad about yourself after you scroll through, I think that's a really good time to say, okay, who can I go through and unfollow? Even if it's family and friends, because you don't want to have anything in front of your face all throughout the day that's going to be making you feel negative about yourself.
Yeah.
So it depends on how you're looking at social media. There's there's tons of things that could be negative. And I've had to block people out of my lives. There's always one troll on my life that's just saying ridiculous things. Then now I just learned that you can block people out of your lives. I was like, oh, that's cool. And usually, sometimes that person will DM me later and say, I can't believe you blocked me. And I just lead from love. Like, I really feel bad for that. You feel so strongly that you have to be so negative toward everyone. So always remember that when someone is trolling, when someone is bullying online, it's typically more of a reflection of what's going on in their life.
How has finding this huge community of supporters improved your mental and physical health?
I have grown so much through social media. So if you scroll all the way back, when I first started getting a following and I started realizing that people were coming to me, that's when it became all about what my body could do. I never showed my face. I never took selfies. And I was really conscious of what people would say about me, how people would judge me, how I looked. I didn't speak. I didn't do any of that when I first was on social media. It was just look at my body, look at what I can do, look at my cool handstands, and that's all you need.
Yeah.
Because I used to talk very negatively about myself, and it was natural for me. It was like getting ready in the morning. Oh, this looks awful. Oh, I'm fat. Da, da, da. Whatever it may be, I would have the worst conversations to myself. And it wasn't until someone brought up that I'm creating a negative space around me that creates negativity to the people that are directly surrounding me. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to create negativity to anyone else. So then how can I start working on that myself? So that's when I noticed my mom did that all the time. My friends did that all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're just all feeding each other in this negative way. And so I started writing down 3 things I loved about myself every day. And I had to write them down. And I asked my mom and my friends to hold me accountable. And I wanted to hold them accountable, that they weren't allowed to say anything negative about themselves around me. And it created a really good shift, a really good pattern. And it's completely changed my language to myself and amongst my friends, which just makes you feel so much more supported and so much better in who you are. And then on top of that, I've really dove in and done the work, and I've been going to personal development workshops that are quite uncomfortable and super powerful and amazing at the same time. So it's helped me more to get out of the conversation of my head of no one wants to hear me talk, or I don't have anything good to say, or what if this person thinks that of me? I've always had this perfectionist mindset that probably stems from gymnast and just all the things growing up. And so I would usually just stand in the back, and if someone comes talk to me, then I'll come talk to them. But I was very shy, and I held on to this attitude of being shy until I've gone through a lot of work and I've opened up in a huge way. And now I am so not afraid to show exactly who I am on social media. I'm not afraid what comments might be said, because again, that's not on me, that's on them. And it's allowed me to be me, which feels freeing.
Just seeing your feed now, you would never imagine that that was the way you were.
Yeah.
That's a testament to the fact that we really never know what somebody is going through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. I think the fact that you were able to take that and also relate it to your friends and make a more positive bubble around you guys, that's amazing.
Yeah, felt really good.
What are some of the things, especially since you're so busy, you're a super busy person, what are some of the things that you do on a daily basis for self-care to take care of yourself and ward off those bad feelings?
Movement every day is really important to me, and it just helps me to feel better. I mean, sometimes if I'm a little moody, my boyfriend would be like, did you need to go to the gym right now? I'm like, oh, actually, yes, you're right. I do. And also the power of my words and catching myself in them. So do I have to do something, or do I get to do something? Am I blessed to do that thing? So really catching myself in my own language in my day-to-day life, since I am busy. It isn't like I have to do this interview, I have to go to this meeting. It is, I'm blessed to. Like, I get to go to these places, and it automatically changes and shifts the energy. And also, we say 3 things we're grateful for every single night.
Where can the people find you online?
Definitely, I'm most active on Instagram. So DocJenFit on Instagram, on Facebook. My website is DocJenFit.com if you want to kind of read about my story a little bit more.
I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I've been a fan for a long time, and I'm glad I finally get to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Call us, leave us a message. at 732-903-4441, or drop us an email at anxietydiariespodcast@gmail.com. You can find the podcast at www.anxietydiariespodcast.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter as well. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Anxiety Diaries Podcast. We're also on Twitter at Anxiety Diary Pod. Thanks again for listening. Be well, and we'll see you next week.